Today we got a very special guest, Anastasia Zinchenko. Did I say that right?
Yes, you said it perfectly, better than anyone else.
Yes, nailed it. She's a badass powerlifter, bodybuilder, and she has a PhD in biochemistry. And
yeah,
obviously she knows a lot about sports nutrition, exercise science, and she's a vegan. She hasn't eaten meat in 22 years. You just told me that?
yes, exactly. I became vegetarian like probably even more than 22 years ago and vegan about 10 years ago. Yeah, and also
Wow.
at the same time, when I became vegan, I started lifting weights. So all my muscle are really like vegan muscle, plant built. Because there's like often this argument: if somebody builds muscle with meat and becomes vegan, then you build your muscle with meat. Now you just stay in your muscle. But
I
in my
get
case, yeah,
I get
it's
that all the time because I've only been in this journey for 3 years, but now you've been in for 10 years vegan, more than 22 as a vegetarian. So nothing to say against the muscles you built on plants. So today I want to focus on one of the biggest and most controversial topics when it comes, well, I think it's one of the biggest and most controversial when it comes to veganism and fitness, and that's protein consumption, protein intake, what is right, what is wrong, what's needed, what's not needed, supplements, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and first start with, I think, just giving a little bit of you can give us a little bit of a breakdown of why protein is important when it comes to physique and muscle growth and retaining muscle mass and health.
So protein is not only important for building muscle. Protein is important actually for everyone, because like almost all molecules in our bodies are built out of protein. Also, not just our muscle, but also our organs are built out of proteins. Also, like lots of enzymes in our bodies. Basically, like anything you need, cells, everything needs protein. So it's like a super important nutrient. And when it comes to building muscle, protein has several different functions. First of all, protein is a building block for muscle. And here it's even more important to look at the individual amino acids, not just at protein. Because imagine it, you would like to build a house. Your muscle is like a house. You need bricks, you need doors, you need windows, you need everything, And then if you just get too many bricks, but no doors and no windows, your house isn't complete. So you really need to pay attention that you get enough of everything. And this is the same with amino acids. When we hear like essential amino acids, non-essential amino acids, it's very confusing. Why is it important? How much do we need? And so on and so on. So imagine these different amino acids are like different components of the house. You're building. Some are the bricks, others are the doors and windows and roof or whatever you need, And some of the amino acids can be produced by our bodies. So that are the non-essential amino acids. You eat normal food, no matter what you eat, your body somehow will manage it to produce these amino acids. But the essential amino acids are those our bodies can't produce. So we need to get enough of them through food. Let's say these are the windows. You need to eat enough windows to build your amazing muscle house. And then you need also to look, what protein sources you eat. And it happens that animal protein sources have more of this essential amino acids, the high amounts. It doesn't mean that vegan proteins don't have them. They have just lower amounts. Or some protein sources have lower amounts of some amino acids, the other protein sources of the other amino acids. That's why you hear that it's important to combine vegan protein to get a complete protein. Like I'm sure you heard about this rice and beans and things like this. In general, it's about protein from grains and protein from legumes, because there are like two limiting amino acids on a vegan diet, which are essential. That the one is lysine, which is usually present in like all kinds of legumes. And the other ones are sulfur-containing amino acids. And you can find high amounts of them in grain protein.
What's the other one?
Sulfur-containing amino acids, like cysteine, methionine. Yeah.
Okay.
And then that's why you see, here's this rice and bean thing. That's where it comes from. So ideally, you want to get both. So now we covered the thing, okay, protein is important for building muscle. We need to know, what protein we need to eat, and also how much of it. it depends on your body weight, it depends on, for example, if you want to build muscle, also on your training stage. It is kind of popular misconception when people think, okay, people who are more trained, who are like big or the big bodybuilders, they need more protein than the people who are just starting. But actually, it's not like this, because people who are already trained are closer to their genetic potential. They won't build so much, more muscle. But people who are just starting, they have, lots of muscle to build. They have to catch up with like all the muscle mass they need to build. So they actually need more protein. And so, and there's like one particular amino acid, which is leucine, and it's not to confuse with lysine. Both of them sound like very similar. And when I need to think about them myself, how to pronounce them, because in German you pronounce them exactly the opposite way. And I've at the university, and I've done my education in Germany, at least my undergrad and master's, and like my PhD in Cambridge, at the University of Cambridge. But still, I learned all this basic in German. I'm like, every time when I pronounce them, it's like, oh my God, don't say it wrong. Don't say it in the German way, say it in the English way. So yeah. So this amino acid is not just a building block, it's an essential amino acid, but it also gives a signal for building muscle. So you need to eat enough of it in each meal. It's like, imagine if you want to build a house, you need workers, and there's like a main worker who tells the workers, hey, go and start working. You do this, and you do this. That's about leucine.
So leucine is like a director, like starts process.
Exactly. And for, and here it depends also on your age, how much leucine you need to build muscle, It is said that elderly people are kind of more resistant to building muscle. They have higher resistance. That's why they need more leucine per meal. But actually, there was also some interesting research about it that suggested that it's not about the age, it's about inactivity. Because they took a group of Dutch people, and Dutch, even elderly people are very active because everyone is cycling, everyone is obsessed with cycling there. And they realized actually they don't need much more than young people. That's why actually the question for me is, it's like, what about the young people who are not active? What about the young couch potatoes? Because most of the research studies have been done like with college athletes and so on and so on.
People that are active. Okay.
Yeah. So it's important, no matter how old you are, it's important to be active. No matter what you do to be healthy, to build muscle, it's important to be active. So no excuses.
Yes, I totally agree with you. Okay. So animal proteins have more of the essential amino acids, and some plant proteins have some others, and others have all of them, but in less amounts. So if someone is listening to this and they're like, okay, so I'm a vegan, I'm interested in building muscle mass. Like, what's a ballpark range? Let's just start with the intake, like a ballpark range of, hey, if you're in between this and this, like you're probably in a safe place, knowing that you're covering what you need to cover to be healthy and to build muscle mass and fuel all the processes that need to happen in your body.
So for vegans, I would go at least to 2 grams per kilogram body weight, 2 grams protein. Ideally, 2.4 grams. For some people, it can be difficult to get it. Also, another thing, I kind of calculated based on also research studies. For example, 2.1 grams plus lysine supplementation. Like have like a small scoop, like 2 grams of lysine, because usually it's limiting amino acid. So just adding the amino acids, they may be missing. Then, all the other amino acids are covered. Okay, I just add, 1. And then, it should be fine. You can get it like on Amazon as pill or as powder or on MyProtein. It's not a big deal.
So 2.4 grams is the ideal. Now, in the vegan community, in my experience, whenever we get a client and we say, hey, you gotta eat, we usually give it in pounds, 1 gram per pound or 1.1. They're like, are you crazy? I'm gonna die from protein consumption. That's too much. It's toxic. So what's the reality when it comes to protein being toxic and protein being bad for you? Like too much protein in what some people consider that is too much protein.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the toxicity of protein, the foundation is actually, that was actually pretty funny because I was concerned about it as well when I just started lifting weights. And I've done this research myself. I was like, oh my God, am I eating too much protein? It's like, okay, you're a scientist. Check what research said. And then I found nothing of it was supported. Not even like, okay, many vegans don't like me because I represent the scientific side. Even when it comes to animal protein consumption, I couldn't find many arguments against it, like based on research studies, and plant protein is usually kind of considered to be safer than animal protein. So first of all, the many research studies that show that protein is bad for the kidneys were performed on mice, and we aren't mice. Then, of course, protein is bad for kidneys of deceased people who have kidney diseases. And often, I think like people who have no idea about like research and about science, they find this research paper, protein is bad for the kidneys, but they oversee that, the research study was conducted on people who have kidney diseases. It doesn't apply to a healthy person. So this is another thing. Then the kind of the myth that protein, takes the calcium or like excretes calcium out of the bones. Yes, when it's all about the balance in the human body. So when people eat more protein, more calcium is secreted in the urine, but also more protein is taken up in the body. So basically, at the end of the day, the balance is the same. And what were the other misconceptions? Like dehydration, but it's like, that was a research study that examined protein intake for, I think, US Army in some desert conditions where, they can't drink enough. So a normal person who drinks like to source and has enough to drink and doesn't walk through the desert, it shouldn't be like a big concern.
Yeah, I think that if you're lost in the desert, that would be the last concern that you have, being intoxicated by protein consumption.
Yeah, so and if you look in detail into each research study, you find, okay, there isn't actually such strong evidence. But that is also a problem with people who are interpreting research, and also it's like fear making. It's popular.
It's good marketing.
It's good marketing, and then people read your articles. You just scare people with something, and then they read your articles. So it's like,
and I think people don't realize how much it takes to properly being able to interpret a study, because how many years have you put into your education to be able to read studies, understand what happens, like understand if they use the proper techniques. If they didn't, like a normal person with no proper background wouldn't be able to. I probably can't interpret most studies, and I ask for help from people like you or someone else that can actually understand everything.
Yeah, it takes a lot, also like the experience, because my PhD is in biochemistry. So I like my bachelor's is in chemistry, my master's is chemistry for biological sciences, my PhD is in biochemistry, and then I transitioned into sports nutrition and exercise science field and run research studies there, even on like real people. So I know everything from molecular level to bacteria level to real human level. And also how challenging it is to perform research studies with real people. For example, probably you're a coach, how difficult it is sometimes to make your clients stick to the diet. They pay you, but still, you get, like me, I'm a coach as well. You get emails, this happened over the weekend, and I ended up overeating. I ended up this. And in a research study, imagine you have, first of all, you need lots of people who commit to do it for free, to stick to a diet, to eat whatever you tell them to eat. Yeah. We were like really paranoid with the research studies. We made everyone, having a food log. We checked the food logs every day, emailed the people.
Yeah, and you're relying on what they tell you. You're not like actually
exactly.
feeding them the food.
Yeah, and we were like, and we had like lots of problems. Also, like we had like 2 weeks diet. Our participants were committed. Athletes were sticking to the diet. But then if you look at research studies that are going over half a year and different diets are prescribed, honestly, I don't trust people so much. Even if researchers do an amazing job, they do as much as they can, but I just don't trust people that they are like, I know clients, I know people, I know research study participants. I don't trust them that they're like really 100% following everything. So that's what we also need to take into consideration, and also that research studies published means. It's like we had also in our research a lot of individual variability, and you publish what applies to the average of the group. And here you can see actually the importance like also of individualized nutrition when it comes to general nutrient intake, protein intake, and so on. Oh, one thing I wanted to say also about too much protein, that isn't, it's kind of a new thing. It's, as far as I know, there isn't actually enough research about it. But I think the biggest concern with too much protein would be, for me, actually the influence on gut microbiota, the gut microbiome. Because now we find out that it has like more and more, importance. Because there's also like communication between the gut and the brain. There's a gut-brain axis. And the gut bacteria we have in our digestive system influence what, even maybe as far as what we think, but also like how much inflammation is on our bodies. And inflammation can interfere with muscle gains, and so on and so on and so on. That's why also, if you want to build muscle, you have to have a healthy gut microbiota population. And if you eat like a diet that is, let's say, high in protein and low in everything else, that is like very not balanced. Because sometimes, especially if you're on a diet, if you are on a contest prep or something, you need to keep your protein intake high and drop everything else.
Slow.
And carry it slow. And I was there as well. So at the end, you end up with a very imbalanced diet. So here I see, actually with this, I see a bigger concern, but we don't have enough research about it. But there was like one very promising research study recent, like last year, about gut microbiota and about diversity. And also they measured the inflammation in blood, And we usually got the advice, if you want to have like a good and healthy gut microbiota, you need to eat lots of fiber. And they have shown in this research study that actually you need to eat fermented foods. This has a much higher effect, it creates much more diversity for the gut microbiota. I just wrote an article about it recently. So here, I would maybe, even if you are on such imbalanced diet, I would add like some, ideally homemade sauerkraut, because it also is low in calories and things like this, or like, ferment, like pickles and so on, also like without vinegar and so on. So this could,
you're gonna start doing that. I'm not doing that right now.
Yeah. This could actually kind of save the thing, because I don't think it's about, eliminating something. It's more, it's better to add, better stuff to it. It's not about like reducing protein. It's about adding more vegetables to create like a nutrient-rich diet. It's about adding fermented foods. It's not, if you have to have a high protein intake, okay, but just add stuff healthy or like other stuff to balance it out, to diversify it.
So you need to be eating everything. You need to be eating your protein, your veggies, your carbs, basically have a diet that covers all your bases, and your fats as well. So 2.4 grams per kilogram, what would you consider too high?
The question is for whom?
True.
Yeah, it's like sometimes, like, again, there are individual differences. Also, it's about, let's say, not even what we eat, but what we digest and what we take up. For example, let's say somebody, I don't advertise raw vegan diets. I'm against it. I wrote enough articles and did enough videos about it. So, if somebody wants, you can check out my YouTube channel and so on and so on. I'm not a fan of raw vegan diet, because even so there is like lots of nutrients and so on. There's a point why our ancestors started food processing, to make the food better digestible. Yes. Basically, eating very unprocessed diet can reduce protein intake uptake by about 20 to 25%. So if there is even someone who would say, oh no, I just want to be raw vegan, I would say, yeah, okay, then let's go to 2.7 or like 3 grams protein per kilogram.
But imagine getting 3 grams on just raw. That would be
because you probably don't even, because your anti-nutrients in the food or like this fiber probably inhibit your digestive enzymes. You just don't get this protein out of the food. You don't absorb it. So we need to go higher. So
and I think like going down this path, we can get into another myth, which is like processed food being bad for you.
Yeah, so that's why I distinguish between good and bad food processing. Like bad food processing is the one where you remove good stuff, or like what is beneficial for your goals, and good food processing where you remove what you don't need and leave what you need. So like let's say. But also here, it's like very individual, because like let's say bad food processing is like refined sugar, right? This is like we remove fiber, sugar is a cane, like it's a vegetable actually. We remove everything from the vegetable, we leave just sugar. Good food processing would be, for example, protein powder. It helps you to supplement, it helps you to reach, you shouldn't eat just protein powder, but it helps you to reach the protein intake you need. But on the other hand, if you have, for example, if I do a nutrition plan for an endurance athlete who runs long races,
sugar, yeah.
For them, sugar is good because they can't have like the fiber during the race, otherwise they get digestive issues. So again, here it's for
it's very individualized for whom.
Yeah, that's the most important question.
Love that you brought it to the individualized cases. All right, so you mentioned lysine being one of the most important supplements for us vegans that want to optimize muscle growth and amino acid intake. What do you think about essential amino acids, just the powders that you can find in Amazon anywhere?
Well, the question is why. Again,
why?
The question is why, because in general, let's say, even so I say, okay, we can supplement in small amounts of lysine. That's my suggestion. This is like just the top of the iceberg to make something that is already good to maybe very good. But in general, I think almost everything should come as an entire package. I'm not a big fan of processing, removing, and so on and so on and so on. For example, there was even like a research study with a protein powder that was already pre-digested. So they thought, oh, okay, amazing. It gets fast into the bloodstream, whatever. And then they realized, no, actually not. It's already kind of pre-made food for gut cells. So lots of it is eaten up by the gut cells and doesn't even get into the bloodstream.
Oh.
So regarding essential amino acids, if someone, has the supplement, doesn't have another choice, works in a stressful job. I had I coached nurses who had no time to eat.
Well, let me give you a more specific example, and maybe this would be better. Let's say someone is consuming already, 1 gram per pound of body weight, which is around 2 grams per kilo, or a little bit higher than that. But it's not paying much attention to the actual combinations of protein, right? It's just making sure that they're hitting that number. And they want to add something that's going to help grow muscle. It's going to help recovery. Would that be a supplement that you would think would be valuable for that person, or maybe just paying more attention to the actual food sources?
I would pay more attention to the actual food sources, and then I would go rather for legume-based proteins and grain-based protein. For example, if
somebody maybe a mix of like pea protein and rice protein and mix the powders.
Yes, exactly. That's what I would go for: pea protein, rice protein. Or if someone has no other choice, okay, just pea protein. But I don't know. I think we don't have enough data on it. We don't have enough data what really happens. That's the thing.
There's more data.
No, in emergency case, I would say, okay, if there's no other choice, just take it. Probably it won't harm. It can only make stuff better, or it's a waste of money. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. So I think that the conclusion is that just make sure that you're combining different protein sources. Rice and pea seem to be a great combination. Supplement with lysine. Probably falls somewhere in between 0.8 to 1.1, 1.2 grams per pound. And how about because I know that some vegan sources have more amino acids. Like I know soy and mycoprotein tend to be higher quality than the rest. So what are your thoughts about having those as the main protein source in the diet?
Okay. I'm not a big fan of relying on just one protein source. I'm not a big fan of relying, even if it's something that is healthy, on just one food source. Like, I'm a fan of bring variety into the diet, and particularly in variety in protein sources, because most vegan protein, high protein products are either soy-based or gluten-based.
Yeah.
And that's why, for different reasons, even to give you an example from my own life, like in terms of healthy, why you shouldn't consume too much of something that is healthy. I used to eat a spinach salad for lunch, like when I was in England, I don't know, for probably 3 years. every day I had my spinach is healthy and so on. Then I developed a spinach sensitivity. My face turned red, itchy every time I ate spinach. I stopped eating spinach for a while. Now I can eat spinach again. Okay, now I pay more attention to, quantities, frequency, and so on. Because everything, like even all plants, they are healthy, but they have anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients in low amounts actually help our immune system. They are healthy. They can have anti-protective properties against cancer and so on. Everything is good. But if you overeat on them, they have, they're kind of anti-nutrients. They are toxins the plants produce. They aren't beneficial anymore. They can, induce some sensitivities and so on and so on. That's why I'm like, and the same, even like with protein, especially also legumes. Legumes have lots of compounds like anti-nutrients they use to defend themselves. And also for soy, for me personally, there are like several things. Number one, I realized the less processed soy food is. Like in Israel, soy flour is less processed than in Germany, for example. In Germany, I digest soy flour much better. I can eat more soy flour. In Israel, it's less processed. I get lots of digestive issues if I eat larger quantities of soy flour. So again, here it depends on the country.
Yeah.
And also I'm hypothyroid. And soy, what many people don't know, soy binds thyroid hormones. So I don't consume any soy products in the morning when I take my medication, up to 5 hours after I take my medication. And even people who are just kind of borderline hypothyroid, they can, if they eat soy, or large amounts of soy, they can push it to hypothyroidism. Again, I think many people don't know. That's why, and not everyone checks their blood. Not everyone knows it. That's why I'm just, don't rely on just one protein source. You don't know. There's things that are going on in your body you just don't know. And that's why I'm like a big fan of a variety of protein sources. As a recipe, I develop, have a variety of protein sources. And actually now I'm working on a recipe book that will be gluten-free, soy-free, vegan high protein recipes. Not because gluten and soy is bad. No way. I eat lots of gluten. I eat also soy. For me, moderate amounts I need to eat.
But those are the most common ones, right? So
exactly. But just to give people the option not to rely on what is out there, only on what they know. Because people develop food sensitivities. Just to give more balance to their diet, I want to give people the option. Okay, I eat something with gluten for breakfast, something with soy for lunch. Okay, I will take something from this recipe book that is also high protein, low carb, low fat for dinner to create more balance.
So sounds like then we always want to make sure that we're eating different foods across the day and across the weeks. And ideally, the way I do it and the way it works for me is just I just build out my plan and I just repeat that every single day and I just make sure that there's a bit of variety.
Like healthy varieties. That's the important thing. It's not like I'm going to just pick something, all kind of junk food to create different variety, within exactly. A healthy food range.
Yeah, healthy food for sure. Yeah. Awesome. So there we have it. If you could give like a percentage breakdown. Okay, this is your protein intake. You want to make sure if you want to have the optimal intake that's healthy, that's very get this amount from this amount from this, and this amount from this source.
So based on the calculations I did and reviews of the research studies, the ideal case would be if you would get half of your protein from legumes, like soy, pea protein is also a great source also for cooking and everything. Then 1/4 from grain, like rice protein, gluten, and 1/4 from seed protein, because seed protein is higher in isoleucine, and this is the amino acid other vegan protein sources are lower in. And it can be a bit tricky to get protein from seeds. Especially if you're on a diet and you can't eat, in Israel you eat.
But you can get like protein powder made out of seeds.
Yes, you can, but it's also more difficult. You can get sunflower protein powder somewhere, I think on Amazon I found the link. In Germany, it's actually pretty straightforward. The health food stores have a variety of pumpkin seed, sunflower seed, and so on powders.
Yeah.
In other countries, it can be more tricky. I was digital nomad for ages, so I lived in so many different countries and I struggled with it. So for people who live in countries where it's more difficult, that they struggle, then the rule of thumb would be then half from legumes and half from grains of the protein.
Okay. So ideally, you said half, a quarter.
Quarter.
Quarter. There you go.
And in emergency case, if you have to decide for one, then just pick the legumes. They are more important. Just pick the legumes, but ideally vary the legumes. Don't have just soy or just, I don't know, pea or whatever.
Okay, got it. There you have it, people. And make sure you're supplementing with lysine on top of having
if you don't get
sources.
Enough. Yeah, if you don't get enough, yeah. Especially if you don't get enough of the legume protein sources. If somebody gets also protein from, I don't know, rice protein or something.
Is there a point where you think someone shouldn't use lysine or doesn't need to use lysine?
Yeah, if you get enough protein.
Okay, got it.
If you get enough protein, yeah. It just saves you maybe like 20 grams protein per day. So that's why I thought it's like, this kind of, cherry on top. Ideally you would get everything.
It's just a little bit at the end. Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Well, if it takes you 20 grams, and that's what you wrote in the article, is like, I would be really happy with 20 grams of extra carbs right now. So
yeah,
it would make my life very, very different.
Yeah, I did the research when I was in contest prep myself. I was like, okay, this was my motivation.
Well, I freaking love it. I'm gonna check out your meal plans. I'm very, very interested because I've never paid that much attention to like source breakdown. What I've been doing personally is just, I get most of my protein. I drink pea protein. I eat tofu. I eat seitan, and I supplement with essential amino acids. That's basically how I handle my day to day. But from what you said, I probably should include some rice protein and some lysine and maybe some other sources.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think the more complete the package is, or closer to say whole food, the better. So that's why I would say protein powder is better than just essential amino acids. Whole food would be ideally better than just protein powder, but sometimes we just can't afford it for our goals. Sometimes we just need to pay attention. And as long as you have like enough vegetables and enough good stuff in your diet, I think it should be fine. I'm more fan of adding good stuff than removing something.
Freaking love it. Add good stuff instead of removing something. Anastasia, thank you so much for the time. Is there anything else you want to add up about protein, about what we talked about?
I would probably add that most of the stuff you hear, even if it's something based on research, based on this or this or this or this, it's not as extreme. Because when I became vegan and started, training and building muscle, I said, oh my God, soy is bad. What am I going to eat if I can't eat tofu? Where am I going to get my protein from? Oh my God, gluten is bad. How do I get my most of the time, it's not as bad as it seems. If you look really into research, maybe it's like for certain people, certain groups, certain diseases, or some stuff like this. In general, the rule of thumb is not to overdo, not to go in any extremes, just one protein source, just one nutrient, just this diet, to maintain like a healthy and good, balance. And, if people have any questions or want me any myths to debunk, because I debunk lots of myths and deposits. What people are asking me usually, it's like, yeah, I heard this and this. Is it true? What does the research say? They can find me on Instagram. They can find me on my homepage, sciencestrengths.com. There's my email address, and just shoot me a message like, I'm desperate. I'm not sure. Am I going to die if I'm eating tofu now? To build muscle, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to reply to the messages.
There you go. And I was about to ask you if someone wanted to reach out to you, where they can find you, and I'll make sure to link both your Instagram and your website.
The best way is either Instagram, but often people get into this hidden messages and so on. They just don't see them, or just really on my homepage. There's my email address, just to write me an email. That's how you reach me for sure.
There you go. Thank you so much for the time. This was awesome. And
it was a pleasure.
Yeah, excited to do it again.